I just want to start off by saying congratulations on the film. I loved you as Jack, or Black Jack as he likes to call himself.
Blackjack Jack, yeah.
How did it come to fruition for you to star in Private Chat? What sold you on the concept?
It was. I knew I did know Ben. We'd worked together on a film, but didn't get. Wasn't he was an act. I was an actor. He was the AD. We didn't actually get close on that. But the director of that was Oliver David, who produced the movie, and I can't remember if it was him or Ben. It was either of them when they were casting. Sent me the script, and I was very intrigued, even just from what was on the page. It did just strike me as a good part and one that could become even better in the making of it. As good, that's the way a good script feels. Like not only do you like it, but you have a vision that it may even be something greater than it is. And then I auditioned for Ben. I just read a scene or two, and then he was happy and thought, okay, I want you to play the part. And then he came across Julia, and I was like aware of her as somebody who just had a big personality and was like a, you know, an influencer of sorts. But she's an incredible. I mean, she's an incredible actor. So as soon the first time we read together, then I remember being like, oh wow, this movie actually might be really good because. I mean, just from the first read, the scenes were really good, and you don't always feel that. There's not always a really easy repartee and rapport, and there just was, and it just really believed her in the role, and that's, I mean, that's everything, because if you are working with great people, your job is just easy, just total. It's just easy. It actually is easy, and you get to just sort of let watch them, and this movie especially about, with in it that I'm obsessed with this character. Julie just is so magnetic and good that it just wasn't. I didn't have to affect it much. It was just easy to work, easy.
I spoke to Ben last week. I had a short interview with him, and I asked him about the film's themes of obsession, isolation, loneliness, and if they would resonate with people more currently than they may have done pre-pandemic. What do you think?
The easy answer is yeah. I think everyone had a sense that our devices had the capacity to alienate us. But now many of us are quite literally alienated by a fear of the virus, or a real need to avoid the virus, or even just walking down the street with a mask is like an alienating factor. So all these issues that were sort of static are being turned up to a much louder volume, and no one cannot confront them. So even though this thing that happened in Ben's movie could have happened before our moment now, it's probably happening a lot now, even with people that aren't internet people, that aren't into the internet, that don't have any online obsession, be it social media, gambling, porn, stocks, Twitter, fucking what, there's, I mean, almost anything on the internet is designed to or could become an obsession. I think Ben chose good ones for his film and to make his points, because it's like money, sex, which are so important to people. But yeah, yes.
So just talk me through how you prepped to embody Jack, the character. Obviously, there's very real themes of addiction and obsession in the film. How did you approach them as an actor?
Good question. I almost never really know how to answer this, but I'll try my best. A lot of prepping is like not as sort of magical or bizarre as one might think. It often has to do with just reading the script and learning the lines. And in doing that, you're taking in the character, and as you do that, things just start to work on you unconsciously. And you know, I really do believe in bringing yourself to a role, and thank God I'm not really like Jack totally, but there certainly are parts of me that are. And so part of it is just kind of not like an intellectual identifying of those parts, but a sort of non-intellectual, spiritual, physical identifying of those parts. And then you just turn knobs up on yourself and down others. It's like if you, a nice metaphor is like these personality or emotional knobs. And when you're acting, some are just much higher than they would be normal, like the obsessive ones, or temper or silliness even, you know, or whatever, you know, because I feel like I think that Jack, part of what I think when I watch it makes him slightly redeeming, and I'm not even sure I was aware of doing it, but that like there's like a very boy, and Ben was very deliberate with me to get this there, because it's not necessarily my instinct to do as a person, but to have him be actually very excitable and very buoyant, very youthful and silly, because it undercuts some of the obsessive qualities, but it doesn't, but it actually goes hand in hand, because it's like he really is like sort of an underdeveloped guy. And a lot of his love for Scarlet is, even though it manifests in this kind of like, you know, what we consider like an obscene fetish, it really is just like the young lover who hasn't actually ever found the Juliet, and now maybe he has, and he's kind of just awash with poetry, even though he's jerking it, you know. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying, you know, you get in the character in a variety of different ways, and sometimes just being on set in the costume in front of the actor, sometimes it's like I gotta say something, but I don't feel like the character until a couple days into shooting. You know what I mean? Like it just happens if you do your work and you trust it and you've done it enough. And I've been able to like feel this process work for me a number of times, that you just have faith that you'll become possessed by something outside of yourself, because that's really what you want. You don't want to feel like you're doing it. You don't want to feel like you're muscling it. You want to feel like some ghost of another is kind of moving through you. And
no, that's poetic, a way of putting it. And you know, a lot of actors would probably give you a shorter answer than that, but you've gone in depth with that and how much it means to you to embody this character.
Thanks.
So without spoiling anything for anybody who may have not seen the film, there are a few scenes where you have to physically punish yourself for Scarlet's, you know, satisfaction. How did you mentally prepare yourself for those scenes? Because there's some scenes involving cigarettes and stubbing them out on your tongue. Like how did you prep for that?
No, I didn't really prep. I mean, the more prep for that would make it harder. You really just got to do it, and it hurts for like a second. Yeah, I wish there was a better answer for that, but that's, you know, sometimes the stuff like that is in the realm of like physical stunt, it's somewhat even easier than stuff that feels easy, because it's kind of easy to just, you know, stab a cigarette on your tongue, goes ow, and you don't have to act, it just hurts. You know what I mean? Those are almost the easiest moments.
Okay. Do you think that the documentary guerrilla type qualities of the film leave room for empathy and sympathy for Jack and Scarlet as viewers?
Do you as opposed to, you mean, explain your question just a little more.
So, for instance, with Jack, he likes to make a series of bad decisions, but he's doing it with the intent to better himself. Do you feel as a viewer that people might feel frustrated with his choices, or be more understanding of why he makes those choices?
I think it definitely depends on the viewer. I'm sure some will be frustrated and others will relate, and there will most likely be a mixture. of frustration and feelings of relatability, but or no one will relate, or they'll be purely frustrated. It's very hard to say. I mean, one thing I've learned is you can never really guess how people are going to relate to a character. And I never really even trust my take on a character I've played, because it's impossible to see a character you've played the way just an audience member would, because it's you. So you're like caught up in a whole bunch of different thoughts and concerns that shouldn't be there. And even if, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think it just really depends on the viewer. I think that my hope is whenever you sort of have this naive hope as an actor that people relate to you, but that's not also, it doesn't always have to happen that way. Sometimes you play characters that people don't relate to, and that's the point. With Jack, my feeling is that it would be a mix, but I'm not sure it's for me to say or decide.
Obviously, you've mentioned that you worked with Julia. This was before, you know, the monumental success of Uncut Gems. What was it like working with her at the time?
So cool. I mean, Julia's amazing. She's just like a very relaxed. I mean, I think part of what I notice in great actors, whether they come from sort of a rigorous background in acting training or they come from not that, is that the best actors are just truly comfortable in their own skin and with their own identities and personalities. And that, I mean, there's almost no one who's more confident and comfortable than Julia. And she also has like a very deep inner life, and then the beauty and the talent is she's able to share that with the camera. Like, she's able to let the camera see her inner life, see her complexity, and she's able to be her intensely charismatic persona on camera. Some people have all this, but then the camera's on and it doesn't translate. They get shy or whatever. But you know, that was the thing that I was immediately struck by with Julia, and I think why she is a star and why the world agrees is because the camera doesn't mute her in any way. Like, you just see the real person, and she's a fascinating person and just great at acting. So I don't know, you know, it was like no one could ever know that she'd become so famous after this. I just was like really happy to be working with a really great actor, because it's just like doesn't always happen, and when it does, it's the only reason why I even wanted to acting, is to like hopefully occasionally work with people who are truly great and make the work feel transcendent.
Obviously, you worked with Buddy as well, and speaking to Ben last week, he's quite the character on and off screen. What was it like working with him?
Yeah, Buddy is who he is. I mean, that is him, and it's special. I mean, he brings it. I mean, you don't have to act with Buddy. I mean, the thing is with these people like Buddy, when people are actually a real character, you don't have to act. You don't have to act, you know, and that's what's so fun. I don't want to act, you know, when I'm acting. I hate acting, actually. Acting is boring and I don't like it. There's something else that is just not, it is acting, but it's much more experiential, and you're not thinking in terms of lines or scenes or characters. You're just actually having experiences with people. And when you're working with someone who Buddy is Buddy, and when you're working with someone like that, you don't have to pretend, because he's not, you know. So
Yeah, I get that vibe from everybody involved in the film. It feels very real. Going back to what I was saying about having a documentary like quality, it doesn't feel like a work of fiction. Ben mentioned last week that there was an unscripted scene with you and Buddy, Larry, in the art gallery where it broke out into a little scrap.
Yeah, I don't even remember how that happened, but it wasn't in the script. But I don't know. I don't really remember, but it just felt like we would fight. I don't know. It was just one of those things. I mean, I do like a bit of chaos, you know, and I'm not sure if I initiated or if he did, but I certainly went along with it because that was our first day, and it is sort of fun to just introduce a chaotic element. But it felt right. It also felt right. Like this guy isn't really such a close friend, and I knew he was like kind of sabotaging my chance with my ex, and also I think that like, you know, Larry and Buddy, he is like a guy who's like kind of like would get into a fight, and I don't think Jack really would. So sometimes guys like Jack who kind of wouldn't fight like do use a guy who would fight as an opportunity to fight, you know. So it was fun, but yeah, no, it wasn't planned, but I think it does work in the movie. It's kind of fun scene.
I've seen the video on Ben's Twitter account of you almost winning $3,000.
No, we won.
You won. You won.
Yeah,
it. Oh.
yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. On the caption it said almost because it looked like you were a bit devastated.
No, I don't know.
You did win it.
No, yeah, we put like 100. I put on like 60, and he put 60s. We put like $120 on red 21 on the roulette, and we hit red 21. I had to sign like a W9. It was like a $30-something $100 payout.
Wow.
It was crazy. We had a guy come up to us and said, leave right now, leave right now. Like he may have even worked for the casino. I don't know. It was so wild. No, it was fun. It was, you know, I mean, in a way, it's a, not to be too corny, but it is something of an appropriate analogy for this movie because this movie is getting a lot more attention than I ever expected. I mean, you know, I don't ever expect much, even when you're doing like a huge production, you never know what people are going to care about. But this is a movie that definitely I wasn't expecting. I definitely think in its own way, it hit a number for sure, like in terms of being something that people are interested in.
Yeah. It's
a small movie they are.
It's a really phenomenal film, put together fantastically. All the cast, great, yourself included. And going back to what I said, because it has very real themes that people can relate to now more than ever, I think it will hopefully bring you all the success.
Thank you. That's nice. I'm glad you like it. That means a lot.
So obviously the highs and lows of Jack's journey and his quest to find Scarlet. Obviously those end scenes, quite bittersweet. Do you feel that the film's overall message is about two completely different people that are on the same path to find a connection on a much deeper level?
I think that could, yeah, I mean, I think a film's message is hard to pin down because it should be malleable based on who's receiving the film. I'd like that if that's what you got from it, for sure. Yeah, that's fine. I would agree. It's hard for me to come up with this answer because I don't feel like an audience member to the movie, and I'm not really looking for, even as the actor, I'm not really looking for the message because I feel a movie is more likely to have a strong message if everyone's just sort of focused on their job. And in a way, it's not my job to play the message of the movie. In fact, it might be horrible if I had some idea of what the message was and was playing that. But I think you're right.